Um, I want to really start by saying just how much I loved the book, how much I needed the book, actually. I've been, there've been trans people in my sphere for some time now, but, I don't know that I really understood the context, the history, the way that, that so many issues are entrenched in language and so forth, at anywhere near the level that I needed to. And as you even say, it still feels like this book is only the tip of the iceberg. But I just wanted to say right off the bat, thank you for that, and what a terrific piece of work that it is, and how generous it is in spirit. I often found myself thinking, oh yeah, that's me, in some of the things that you suggest not to do, and also feeling, oh that's good, I don't do that in other times. It's very practical as well, which is terrific. It's such an important issue, and for all of us. So I really just want you to start off by just telling us, what is the beating heart of the Pronoun Lowdown, and what's it really all about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting the way that you said, I don't know much about this, I don't know much of the context, and I think that's not an accident. I think that is on purpose. I think there's a reason why we don't know this history, there's a reason why we don't know this language, and I think it's not accidental. I think it's a very conscious erasure of trans history and trans existence. I mean, even the way that historians remember queer people as like, oh, her and her housemate were very close, they were very good friends. It's like, no, they were very gay. You've just rewritten the way that this story actually went. And so I think it's really important to understand that history is written by the victors, by the people who are in power, and they construct history in a certain way. So, I'm hoping that for all of you in the audience, your understandings of Australian history is different to what mine were growing up, but I didn't get any First Nations or Aboriginal education whatsoever. I was taught about the settling of Australia and, the ways that things went quite peacefully and blah, 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 because the people writing that history were the violent people. So that's the way they wanted to remember things. So I don't think it's accidental, and I think as well, when I write these books, I'm not the first thinker of these stories. I'm not the creator of gender diversity or transness or anything like that, but rather my goal is to take sometimes quite dense academic theory and sometimes quite convoluted ways of talking about this stuff and making it really accessible and really understandable, because I think if you can't explain something to a 3-year-old, you don't really understand it. I don't know if you've had teachers who just kind of speak in like really long form. I used to have this English teacher who he was like a walking thesaurus. He just used the biggest, most complicated words he could. And I was like, do you feel like a big man? Do you feel good about yourself coming into this room full of teenagers and using words we don't understand? Like, does that make you feel good about yourself? And I've experienced that so much in my life that I'm like, I don't think these things need to be really overly complicated, because I don't think that they are. I actually think that they're quite simple, and the simplicity is that we are all people, we all have 3-dimensional personalities, we all have interests and behaviours and expressions and things that we connect to. Some of us like the mountains more than the beach, some of us like trees more than the desert, some of us like sport, or maths or science, or you all have different preferences of school subjects that you enjoy or sports that you enjoy engaging in. We are all individual and unique people. It's really as simple as that. I don't want to be met with all of these expectations of what I can or can't do in the world because of the body that I was born with, and the assumptions that were put on that body. I want people to meet me as an individual and get to know me. I know, it's so radical, but I think it's really quite simple. And so that was my goal with this book, is that I think pronouns have become the next pinnacle after marriage equality. People are like, this is the next most important thing. And I think similar to marriage equality, it's really quite unimportant in the scheme of issues that we're fighting for trans liberation. I mean, I don't think that trans homeless youth care all that much about what pronouns you're using when you're handing them keys to stable housing or access to healthcare. Like, there are much bigger things that we're dealing with, but again, like marriage equality, I think that this is a vehicle that we need to go through in order to get the liberation that we are seeking. And, you know, a big reason why I wrote the book is because I wrote another book about my life and about my gender and about that journey, and I continue to get misgendered left, right, and centre. Oh, he uses they pronouns, he's non-binary. I mean, if I had $1 for every time that happened, I would still be pissed off, but at least I'd be rich. And so, you know, that kept happening, and I was like, God, all right, well, I guess I'll write a whole book about it, and then hopefully that will stop. And it hasn't, would you believe? I did an event recently where it was on Zoom, and I had my Zoom name, had my pronoun in it, my bio had my pronoun in it. I've written a book about pronouns, and the person used he pronouns when introducing me 4 times, with no correction. Imagine I wrote a book about pronouns and my pronouns are just he, him. Like I'm just some guy. I was like, let me explain pronouns to you. I couldn't believe it. I was like, do we really think so highly of men that people think I could be one? Like, no offense, but I'm just not, you know? Like, look at the fashion. I mean, really. So, yeah, I mean, that was my emphasis, was kind of countering a lot of that stuff, but also making this an understandable experience for everyone, because I think that we are all fundamentally disadvantaged by gender stereotypes. I don't really think that anyone is liberated by them. I've never met a man who said to me, you know, when I was a little boy, fell off my bike and grazed my knee and I was crying. My dad came over and he said, oh, man up, don't be such a wuss. That made me feel great. So glad he said that. Haven't had any emotions ever since. And I'm, you know, stoked about it. Like, I've never heard that. I've never heard a woman say to me, when I'm really passionate about something and I'm arguing on a topic and someone tells me I must be on my period. I love that, because I am on my period constantly and it informs all of my perspectives on things. I haven't heard it, you know. I really, really don't think that any of us are liberated by those expectations. I think some of us are better at conforming to them or feel better about them than others, but at the end of the day, I feel like we are all restricted by them. And so for me, trans liberation is the liberation of all of us. You know, every LGBTIQA plus person I've ever met has at some point been told it's just a phase. And I think that that's really interesting, the way that you're speaking, because I think everything is a phase. I think everything in all of our lives are a phase. I think we are ever-changing and evolving. You know, like childhood is a phase, high school is a phase, thank God. The boyfriend that you have in high school is a phase, thank God. You know, the car that breaks down, the course that you drop out of, like lots of things in our lives are phases. That doesn't mean that they aren't important, that they don't shape us, that they don't make us who we are. Just because something is short-lived doesn't mean it isn't impactful. But the idea of using that as a way to discredit someone or invalidate someone's identity is so interesting to me, because that is the magical thing about being human, is that we are always changing and evolving, that every day is a new opportunity, that every person we meet is a new opportunity to present ourselves differently, that we can evolve and change and grow. We are not static, and that is a gift. That is a blessed thing, you know? So the idea of using that as a way against us is just like, okay, well, are you not in a phase? Like, that sounds sad. Like, that sounds unfortunate, you know? And yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially the ways that young people and teenagers get invalidated so often. Like, if you have ever had a heart-wrenching crush and anyone has said to you like, oh, you're too young, or you'll learn, or, you know, get over it, or whatever, it's like, I have never felt the kind of love and like huge emotions that I did when I was a teenager. Like, that is the real stuff right there. You haven't yet built up the walls, you don't have your guards up in those same kinds of ways. Like, that is real, raw emotion. And anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is a sad, sad person. And I think that adults don't necessarily know all that much more about the world or about themselves. I think they just get better at pretending. And I think that's a really important thing. It's like the ageism in our society that doesn't recognize the voice of young people and says like, young people are the future. Like, yeah, okay, you are the future, but you're also right now, and your opinions and your existence are real and are valid, and you deserve to have your voice heard.